All right, well, we are having a conversation about community because this month at Northlands, we are launching our journey groups. These are groups that meet throughout the year at different stages, but every February we get together, we talk about the value of community because it's such a big deal that we see in the early church and the Gospels. And so I wanted to have this conversation with a few people. I've got my lovely wife, Nicole, with me right here. And then we are joined by really good friends. They're not just good friends. They're not just deacons in our church, but they're also our marriage group leaders. They are constantly pouring into Nicole and I personally, and also, what is it now, like 25 of our closest couple friends. But this is David and Callie Murray. And we've really appreciated just their hearts and their ministry and their passion for community because they're not just talking about it, but they're living it out for the last, I think you said, the marriage group, like we've been going for 5 years, but I was like, I'm pretty sure it's been like 6 or 7 years.
Feels like 5.
Do we? Yeah. It's
Yeah.
insane. So David and Callie, you guys have been leading us out of your home, and it was easy to do when we started with maybe 6 or 7 couples. Now I think there's like, with the new couples that are joining this year, it's like 50 something people. You guys have blown out a wall in your house just so that we could fit everybody in. Number one, why did you start a group like this? Did you think it was going to become what it is when you started, in the sense of like, oh, we'll just see where this goes? And then why do you keep doing it every single year when life gets more and more wild?
Yeah.
Well, I think we should give credit to Stephen and Brittany first, because I feel like they started the first iteration,
No,
right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was pre-COVID. David's brother Stephen and his wife Brittany started a group out of their house. And this was, a smaller group of people, and they would bring in couples that were, I feel like our parents' age, probably, right?
Yeah.
And so they would kind of share their marriage story, and it was awesome. And then I feel like COVID happened, and that stopped. And then our iteration.
Yeah. So the format, which we've actually kept, but the format it started with was, let's just bring people in who are older and wiser than us and just tell their story, talk about their marriage. We had Greg and Michelle in that first season 1, I guess, or maybe that was like the pilot season.
Yeah,
I don't know
that was
how that
pilot
works.
season. Yeah.
We weren't sure if we were going to
We
get
weren't sure,
canceled.
Probably should have
We
been
did
canceled.
apparently get
It was kind of because
Yeah.
of COVID, I guess. But the format was really, like, let's just, like, super simple. Let's just learn from a couple that are older and wiser than us. And so we did that at Stephen and Brittany's. And then when we rebooted it, honestly, I think it came from the idea, Callie and I have always said, we are like filthy rich in amazing people in our life, like in like in our parents, our friends. And we were like, we don't know what to do with that. Like, it's not like actual money that you can just give away. So like, what does it look like to give away this, in a sense? And so we rebooted it, and post-COVID, I don't know what happened in COVID, but a ton of people in their 20s moved to Norcross. And so the thought was, well, we don't want to just restart a group that is people in their 50s and 60s talking to 20-year-olds. Like, we are in our mid to late 30s. Let's introduce these young couples who are having kids to our friends, essentially. And so that's what made us reboot it, in the sense of like how we rebooted it. I'd be curious, Callie, to hear your thoughts on just like why we did, maybe a little bit.
Yes. Okay, so I think why we did it, I think, was seeing how important community had been to us in our seasons in the military, moving to new places and knowing nobody. And then, I think to David's point, we just had incredible people in our orbit, and we kind of wanted everyone to know each other. I think of like the Settles, Jonathan and Emily, who had recently lost their daughter to cancer. And they were our first ask of like, would you come share your story? And so they sat, and some people knew their story, some people didn't. And they shared, everything from how they met to battles with infertility. And then they shared this whole journey of losing Lucy. And so many stories, people who had lost jobs, adopted kids, our friend Jennifer Stevens, who had lost her husband. Yeah, like she came and gave her story. And I remember Carly Harrison at some point saying, like, all of my worst fears have been spoken about in this group. And I realized it's okay, So I think some of it, I think it was people meeting people, but then also hearing stories, like stewarding those stories.
Yeah, totally.
So good.
It's really good.
I remember we had to make a hard decision. It wasn't hard. I guess it felt like it was supposed to be. When we went from year 1 to year 2, we were basically like, do we want to keep this as is, meaning the exact same people, just re-invite them? Or by then, new people had moved to Norcross, and we were like, do we add? Yeah. And we were like, we could either kind of make this, we thought we were risking trading off like intimacy as a group to go bigger. Yeah. And I feel like it's just kind of the way God works. We basically were like, let's not like gatekeep this thing. If people need community, that was the whole point of starting it in the first place. Like, why stop doing it that way now? Yeah. So we were like, let's just add people. If they're here and they're overlapping in our life, then they're welcome. And it's funny how you would think that would have prevented the group from going deeper. But I feel like it's done the opposite. Because I feel like it's like there's always 25% of the group that's like, I can't believe this exists. Yeah. And it's kind of cool.
When you guys haven't compromised the depth for the new people. It hasn't been, let's change our structure because we have people that don't really know what they're not used to this. So let's not talk about deep things. Let's not ask the questions we're asking. Like we've kept our level of vulnerability and the deep questions and getting real with God.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's inspired the people who felt like they're on the outskirts of community who come into that environment and feel safe to actually go deep. And we haven't let that change us.
I feel like I remember having that conversation initially of like, do we invite more people in? Do we just say like, well, no, like we'll invite them maybe to Northlands where there's a more corporate gathering, but this is like us. And I think in that journey, I don't know if that was like, if like it was right away year 1 or year 2, or if it was like more like year 3 or 4 that we were having those conversations, but it felt like a bunch of people moved in. And I think the thing that we were nervous about was like, we finally found something that we felt was just really special. And we just didn't want to dilute that special thing. But then at the same time, the thing that pulled us in the direction was going, this is too special not to give an attempt to go, can we deliver this to other people because it's needed? I think in the culture that we're in, we are surrounded by people. And I think that's also maybe something worth talking about is just when we say community, what do we mean? Because there really is, like on a Sunday morning, that is community. That is a corporate gathering of God's people. It's biblical. I think you can have friendships with your coworkers, right? Like, and that's great. But like, this is not just like, oh, I know a lot of people. Because I think even like hearing the phrase, I love that phrase. We were filthy rich people. I was like, where are you going with that? I was like, oh, people. Oh. But it's like, it's not that we know a bunch of people. It's that we've opened up our lives with like vulnerability and transparency with many people, and that has been like reciprocated and things like that. And so I feel like even maybe just describing our evenings, because I don't even feel like the formats, as somebody who's just been attending, I think like seeing people, I think you positioned it like, oh, these people have been married 20 plus years or 30 plus years. And then, we did have some younger couples who'd only been married maybe 10 years, 15 years in that 20-year range. But it's really kind of a very similar format. I would argue very biblical of breaking bread together in each other's homes. But like maybe just describing the evening so we can talk more about like why we think it's special, and maybe just not just like, oh, I know people and I have friends, but like what we're doing that drives it to a place that brings more this transformation we're talking about. Yeah. So when we come to your house, what are we doing?
Okay, so 6 o'clock. It's one Thursday a month is what we have. I'll go straight logistics with you.
Do it.
I have an Apple Note in my phone with all of this in here. So the beginning of the year, we choose our dates, and we put them in. I put them in my Google Calendar, and I send out the calendar invites. And so one Thursday a month, 6 o'clock, people come for a potluck dinner.
How do you choose the food theme? Because I'm always wondering.
About a year in, David was like, "We need a system to this," because I was like, "It's the thrill of the potluck. Just like let's see what people show up with, And he was like, So we made it. Like,
I want to enjoy my dinner.
Everybody shows up with salad.
I know a lot of meatballs. This year.
So we have a Google spreadsheet and choose a theme based on what we're feeling like. So it could be like Greek night or barbecue night. Salad bar is always January. And then straight logistics, Google Sheet. We have like meat, sides. We have a follow your heart section. Anyway, people just sign up with like what they're going to bring. Yep. So, that way we know too, if we need to fill in any holes. We always do plates and forks and all that kind of stuff. People show up at 6. I think this year we have 30 couples in the group.
Jeez.
I ask everybody to commit. And so my deal is like, I know things come up, but like I'm going to put you on the Google Calendar, and I need to know that you're ready for that level of commitment. Yeah. So people say they're in, and they show up at 6. We get all the potluck stuff organized, and then people make their plates and they spread out all over our house, and we have like little pockets of people eating everywhere. And I love it because I feel like it's usually like different groups. Like, do y'all sit with the same people, or is it okay? Sometimes it's like only girls. Sometimes it's, I don't know, it's random groups of people. And then around 7, we go into our front room, and usually this is where we interview a couple. And this is like a guest couple we bring in. One of my favorite things has been having them come to the potluck too. And they just like experience it all, and they get to talk to people. And so, yeah, we ask them, usually it's like, tell the 5 minutes version of how you fell in love. And I usually like who you are, like how many kids, what do you do, that kind of thing. How you fell in love. And then it's like walk us through a couple of like hills and valleys in your marriage. And then what did you learn about God through those? And yeah, and that's it.
A few things that I want to stop people on, because they haven't seen your house, is they're going, well, that's good for David and Callie. I'm sure they have like a mansion on 12 acres,
So big.
and they probably just
Filthy
have two.
rich.
They just have they just have 2 golden doodles that they take care of. So a couple things that we need to just walk through. Number one, you have 3 incredible daughters, and you just recently invited 4 adoptive kids into your home, 7 kids total. And there's not some massive basement that they're playing in when they're there. So they're there with us. I'm talking dinosaurs with King on a regular basis.
Oh, yeah.
I'm here for it. He's challenging me. He's stretching me. He's like, do you know what this one is? And I just like make up a name, hoping he doesn't know. And I'm teaching him. And so it's like there's kids running around. The front area is wherever we're sitting in the house, we then pick up our seats, our white folding chairs, and we bring them in and we reset a room. And then that room gets, now at this moment in time, I think we get about 28 into the front room with a
There's some
wall that you
overflow.
guys decided to knock out to help expand it. And there's still a few people who are holding their own babies. And so I think for me is like, the point that I'm making is that there's never a good time to invite 30 people into your home. But it's also, I think it was Justin Earley who wrote the book, Habits of the Household. And he goes, there's entertaining people in your home, which is beautiful. Clean your house like it's never been cleaned before. Welcome people in. And then there's the gift of hospitality. And that is you're inviting people into your life, and they're more than happy to participate, but you're not apologizing for your life either.
Yeah.
And so if you're listening, I would just say, like, before you say it, we couldn't possibly do that. I would say they couldn't have possibly done that at year 1, but they didn't know that they were signing up for that. And that's anything to add to the messiness of.
No, I just think that everybody can find an excuse not to open their home and not to open their heart. And I think what you guys have done is look at every barrier and say, it doesn't matter. You know, we're still going to do it anyway. And it doesn't feel like a barrier anymore because nobody's looking at the baseboards, you know, like nobody's like, oh my gosh, there's too many kids running around. It's like, this is joy. This is family. This is home. And I think that makes people feel welcome and it makes them feel safe. And so I just think for myself, I have had moments where I'm like, we have a small house. We can't possibly host this. We have, we can't afford XYZ. There's always a reason not to do it. But if we can think through, no, everybody deserves love and people aren't coming for your house. They're coming for you. They're coming for connection. I think that this is a beautiful example of that.
Yeah. One just thought I had while you were talking is this idea that it sounds like, in some ways, if we were to like stop right now, like this conversation, it would sound like, oh, David and Callie have opened up their home and created this community. It just doesn't work. This is probably the hard news in some ways of like, because I don't know how to tell people to recreate this. Like, it's a community full of people who would do the same thing and are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, I feel like to this idea of, yes, you're meeting at somebody's house, but in many ways, it's 30 people who are all doing the same thing and opening up and being vulnerable and committing and doing all the same things. They're cooking them, whatever their thing they're bringing to the potluck. They're figuring out childcare for their kids. When they're there, actually being vulnerable and honest about their life. And I just think that's cool. And it's really hard to recreate unless a bunch of people are willing to do it.
Commitment.
I think, sometimes you need one person to kind of get the momentum going. Yeah. But like the thing we haven't talked about yet is at the same time the marriage group started, there was a young guys group starting. Like Steven started a men's group of a bunch of guys. And then that group spawned into multiple groups, and this girl starting multiple groups. There's prayer, not, it's like, it doesn't start with, like, if we talked about all those things, it'd be overwhelming.
Yeah.
But it doesn't start there. It just starts with a bunch of people who are like, well, yeah, I'll go eat dinner and listen to somebody talk about their marriage for an hour.
Yeah. Practically on the logistics side, thinking like Callie, like the way that we structure our family rhythm is that we essentially have booked off that every Thursday something's happening. And again, we didn't start there, but it was like the guys were meeting on every other Thursday night. And then we were like, hey, we're doing this marriage group. And maybe that's also like kind of like, do we invite people in? Is like, we never felt like the marriage group was a conflict with the guys, where we were very open to go, hey guys, we're going to keep still meeting twice a month, but actually that second meeting that we're going to have is going to be with our wives, and we're going to invest in our marriage. So when we get together, we'll talk about the other guy stuff that we need to talk about, but we're going to invest in our marriage with our wives, with these people. And so I think when neighbors started moving into the area, we wouldn't be going, hey, come to my guys group. We'd go, hey, why don't you and your wife come to dinner? And then from there it goes, oh, by the way, we have a men's Bible study. And then the ladies were like, why aren't we doing that? Why don't we get a time out with the girls?
Yeah.
And so then it became like a first Thursday was the guys, second Thursday was the girls, third Thursday was the marriage group or whatever. And then it's been this spawning of more people come into the marriage group, and then we go, hey, totally up to you, but would you like to come to our guys group? And there's 3 now. I think there's probably 3 or 4 girls groups. And so it just, I think it's like you hit barriers where it's like, oh man, I feel bad that this couple's definitely like engaged. They signed up for the Google Drive, and it's like, and then we have this guys thing happening. Does that guy want to come in? And then we're like, well, this group's getting a little too big. Why don't we have him come to this group, or we move people around? And we have that conversation. So we just go, I think for us too, this was a learning part for me. Was it was sad for me when I'd walked with Steven's group. We did maybe 2 or 3 years together. And then we had about 6 guys coming to the marriage group. And I was like, gosh, we can't invite them in because it would make the group way too big. But I was like, we've got to do something. So I talked with my group and said, hey guys, I love you, want to still hang out, but I feel like I need to like lead these 6 through our year 1 and what we did. I literally just copy and pasted Steven's thing that he did with us because I found it so helpful. And then 2 guys from our original group came with me. And then after that first year, just doing 1 year with those guys, there was another 6 guys coming to our marriage group. And so now this is what's happening now. As a pastor, this is the best case scenario, because now I'm getting super cocky and arrogant. I sat with a couple. This is what happens. People move into the neighborhood, and they say, hey, like so-and-so told me about your church. I go, man, happy to talk to you about my church. But number one, I'd like to just hear your story today. If we have time to talk about Northlands, happy. I go, but I can tell you my church is great, but that's a biased opinion. Can I tell you about this marriage group I want to invite you to? And I literally say this now, and it just sounds a little, I go, by the time I finish this coffee, you're going to either think he's a part of a cult or, and this is the darker thought, you're like, I think I want to join it. Yeah, right. And so we invite people, and I just tell them the story of like dinner, doing life with each other, the incredible testimonies, stories like the Settles or Jen. And then they're just like, yeah, I think I'd like to, can I talk to the Murrays about getting on the Google Drive and figure it out? And so I feel like there's just something so compelling about like, yeah, I mean, come to the church, that's great. But like this community is like, it just sucks people in, I feel like.
I think too, I've heard a number of people who've started coming maybe on their first night, and you kind of, give us your story high level. And we've had so many people say things like, we're just looking for friends in this season. We just need community. We don't have that right now. And everybody else in the room's eyes kind of light up, because we can't help you with the burdens that you're carrying in your life. We can't help you. But with that, we got this. Like, we feel so confident that that can be fulfilled in your life, that desire is godly, and that God is coming around you, and that we can all be a part of it. And so I think that's just so exciting for our community when people come in and we hear people say, I don't have close friends. I just want community. I want people that love Jesus and can love me, and I can love them back. And we're all just like, okay, sit down, That's easy because we've experienced it and we've tasted it and we're living in it, and it's authentic. We're not striving for it. It's what we're living in now. And it's not to say that we didn't work hard for it, and we'll get there later, but I think it's this feeling of, we're living this and you can have that too. Let's talk. And I think that's really sweet to be able to offer that to people. Yeah. Like, that's not a pipe dream. You can have that, and let's go after it together.
So I'd love to, I'm just thinking out loud in my head, but I'm thinking about the barriers that people might have. I'd love to, like, maybe towards the end of the convo, start talking about, okay, how do we help people start this journey? Like, where were we year 1 to just get the ball rolling in their neighborhood, or pulling people from their church or from their work? to start. But I feel like number one, I'd love to just hear from people because I want to kind of maybe cast vision for folks of going, here's why we would want you to do the work, because it is hard work on two fronts of building it practically. And then I do want to talk about the scary part that nobody likes to talk about, which is vulnerability and like showing people the messy side of your life, which just is not fun, no matter how much you do it, but it has to happen. But what's one of the, maybe for you, like a special moment of going out of the 6 years, like this for me personally and for us as a family was a big deal. Because I think if you put the trophy up and go, hey, we're about to talk about vulnerability and stuff, and going, that is really hard, but the payoff of it is moments like this. Is there any specific for you that you would say, we'll just go around the table, like what was like 6 years, like one of the, this like really, yeah.
I think for us, there have been many, but we've walked through a number of pregnancy losses, and one of those losses was a second trimester loss, and so we had to deliver our daughter and went into the hospital for a number of days, and obviously it was just a traumatic time, devastating tragedy in our family, and when we got home from the hospital, it was really late one night. We were just tapped. I mean, it's as emotionally spent as you can be. And we walked into our garage, and there was this huge banner with, I think it was her name written, and everybody in this community had come up and written a note about her, about just,
we love you, Hannah.
We love you, praying for you. We will always remember your daughter. And then there was cooler boxes, and there were meals, and people filled out a meal train, and nobody even knocked on the door. We didn't have it in us to have conversations with people in that season, but we would just open our back door, and there'd be a cooler box, and someone had texted and like, there's a meal and there's a card, and I mean presents and gifts and Christmas ornaments with her footprint. It was just like so intentionally loving us in a way that we couldn't have asked for, because we didn't know what we needed. But it was exactly what we needed, and it was healing to us. It was medicine to us in that time when we were just spent from grief. So,
Callie, what about you?
Well, it's funny. I'm like tearing up because I'm remembering, and this is stuff you don't even know, but I remember us finding out, and Sarah Jones saying like, I think it was maybe Sarah and Yana, I don't know, but they were like, come to Sarah's house, everyone can sign the banner, and they kind of organized it. And then people would just walk in, and we would see each other, and we would like we all grieved together. Like I remember just like crying with Britt Lakin about it. And so anyway, it was sweet to see people rally. Yeah. For me, I had two quick thoughts. One is very action oriented, and one is just like something somebody said. But when we were on this adoption journey, it was supposed to be this long, slow process. And then all of a sudden we get this text saying, change of plans, we're on our way today. And an hour and a half later, we had 4 kids at our house. And so we get that text, and David's at work. We were supposed to host like a work hibachi dinner that night. It was just total, we were not ready at all. It was chaos. And so I text the group text of just like, emergency, kids are on their way, I need help. And within 15 minutes, I had Yana was praying over every room. Sarah had bought snacks and baby wipes and all of this kind of stuff. It was just like people were there. The house was clean. We were ready. And the kids pull up, and Sarah's across the street hiding, like taking a video of it. And it was just the coolest thing. So that's also a plug just for living close to people. I think that's important.
Yeah.
So, and then the second thing is, we got the kids, and it just torpedoed in the best way, but like life changed. And Laura Powell at some point said, I want to make sure that you are still you, and that you and David are still you and David. And she was just kind of like whatever that means, we want to make sure we don't lose y'all in the process. So even committing to marriage group was a big thing, where David and I looked at each other and we're like, okay, this is important. It feels impossible right now. We're going to do it. And I think knowing Laura and everybody else were committed to whatever it takes to make sure
Yeah.
y'all are still y'all.
When we got the text message or the text or the email that you sent out, like, hey, we're on for a marriage group. I remember looking at Nicole, like, these people are so gutsy. Like, just like, I think to myself, like, oh, guys, do we need to take like a sabbatical from marriage group for a minute? Like, maybe we'll just take the first
It's
quarter.
like
And you're like, no, just come in
Defiance.
and you know.
Well,
just
and
one
that
more.
does, I mean, to David's point, like, that takes everybody being all in on it. And so it is our crazy kids are everywhere. Or we did this renovation to make room. And the last marriage group, it was like, sorry, we don't have, the bathroom's not working. Like, you're going to have to go upstairs, walk through the children. To,
I love it.
yeah.
What about
Yeah.
for you, man?
Yeah, just one thing. I mean, there's probably a million things I could say. One thing that just stuck out to me, and this will be true for me too, is that like the things that you remember or the reasons or the things that stick out to you most is when you need it so badly. Like it's not like there's a million stories of how much fun we've had. Callie turned 40 in December, and we
Yeah.
had an amazing birthday
I was about
party.
to say that was gonna be
It
one of my
was so fun.
highlights. You go there too.
But
Yeah.
like that was so fun.
Yeah.
But fun, there's lots of ways to have fun.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But when you really need it, like when my dad died, I guess almost 3 years ago now, when we got these kids, there's a million other stories, I guess, but are the things that stick out to me.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you're just like, I need this so badly. And I think maybe this is just me. I think it's true of most people by people's response to when they first come into this community. I think everybody has this fear of like being alone.
Mm.
Like everybody has some fear of like everybody's going to abandon me when it gets hard, or I'm never going to find a place that I really truly fit in and are seen. And like if I just disappeared from this community, would anybody know? I think it's like what most people walk around life thinking.
Yeah.
Or
and-
even
Okay.
like, I mean, yeah, here we are talking about best community in the world and all this stuff. But I remember like a week or two into having the kids, I like got a stomach virus, and I was just the neediest I'd ever been. And I remember like 2 a.m. being on my bathroom floor and thinking like everyone is going to leave us. Like we are so needy. And again, here I am saying we're filthy rich with community, but there is that deep fear of like, but when are you going to be too much even,
Yeah.
you know?
So, and then every time we felt that and other people have felt that, it's like, that's when the community shows up.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that's what all the verses to me about like reaping what you sow and like God multiplying if we're going to like keep going down this path of we're filthy rich in people in our
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we've like sown into that and God's multiplied it and given it back to us tenfold, which is just wild to me.
Well, and it's a ministry to those people to give.
Totally.
I think we rob people of that when we say, like, I'm not going to ask because I don't want to inconvenience them. And actually, when you text and say, I need prayer, or I'm like, what a blessing. You know, like I get to bring a meal. I get to be a part of somebody else's journey.
Yeah.
I get to participate in what God's doing in their story. And it's blessed to be a blessing. You know, like I think we sometimes underestimate how much of a ministry to them it makes them feel like they belong when they're needed.
Yeah. And if you're in community long enough, you will be on both sides of that equation.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Like you will for sure. And if you're not, then
Yes.
you're not in deep enough community.
Yeah, so true.
I feel like too, especially I'm thinking like maybe the young 20s and just the culture that we live in, where it's like it's so funny. I'm like listening to people on like dating, and they're like, you know, do you pay for the girl on the first date? Like people just have a mindset of like going Dutch, like really hard. I'm like, I don't think I remember it being like that when we were dating. I think if you come into one thing that will kill the specialness of it is if you are doing one of two things: keeping score in your own head, meaning like I'm too needy. I go, nobody's thinking that of you, kind of deal. Or if you're going like, I do a lot for this group. Like when I go, that'll just kill the mindset. Versus this, like what I would also say is it only feels like a heavy weight if only a few people are bought into this. So like when a need comes up, like it's not hard because you're thinking like I could list off, and I don't know how many, probably worth us counting at some point, like how many meal trains have we done in a year's time for any given time, because stuff's always hitting the fan. But like all that means is like Nicole and I buy one extra meal of groceries and we make one meal, and then that person ends up with like 20 meals somehow.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that doesn't feel like a heavy lift for us, but it's a massive impact. And so I think it's like no, like when you ask for needs, it's not a heavy lift for us because it's not like we're making sure that that the handles are making sure that Callie has everything that she needs. It's the Galatians, like we're gonna help each other with our burdens. Yeah. Everybody has a responsibility for their own loads, but like carrying each other's burdens is only hard if you're taking it upon yourself. Like I must fill the cup of the Murrays like in its entirety, and that does rob other people. Be like, no, we'd actually like to contribute to this as well.
Right, totally. And it's funny, you probably feel this as a pastor. It's probably kind of true, but also easy to fall into the trap of when you lead an organization or a nonprofit or that you are ultimately responsible for all of the, your whole flock.
Yeah.
But in some ways in community, that's not true. Yeah. Like there's nobody
if you
in
drive
charge.
Community, yeah.
Like we're just, I don't know, anarchist or socialist or something. I don't know.
No one
It's
gets
like everybody's
lost.
responsible.
No one falls through the cracks that way.
No, totally. Yeah. And nobody has to lift, like you just said, Tyler, has to lift too much on their own and feels like the ultimate responsibility. It's like not totally my responsibility.
And I feel like it's both the people's generosity and this special thing of community and like Holy Spirit breathed. Because people will say that you joke around, but people joke around all the time about like, oh, the early church was like socialist because they shared all their goods. And I go, no, socialism is where the pastor or the person at the top demands of everybody, you need to be generous. Mm-hmm. What we see in the early church was the Spirit of God breathed, and from the bottom up, everybody started pouring out their lives. Right. Not everybody must give equally, but people were like, I mean, I got a plot of land. Can we sell that? Barnabas, something about Barnabas. People brought actual finances. They brought food. They brought whatever they had. And so it was a spirit move from the people's hearts, not a demand put on them by an external force, forcing them to be this way. All right, so you almost stole.
What was your story?
I was going to say, so my I was actually going to talk. Shout out DJ Tim. I think so. Two things. I would say like the highs and the low to me was the low for us was during that time when it was just a men's group and then the marriage group was starting. That first year, we actually had I think 4 or 5 miscarriages, and I share that story regularly. We were just at that in the men's group. There was not us. No, we only had 3. No, it's for us, it was one of our first, and then there was 3 or 4 other guys, if not 4 other guys, who had also said, "Hey, we're pregnant. We're super excited." So we all celebrated, and everything's great. And then it felt like every single month that we gathered, or every other week, it was like, "Hey, we lost the baby." And I think that was even the Lord's sovereignty on when that happened, because it was about month 6 or 7 into the year, versus like it wasn't year 1 or month 1 or 2 when we were just getting to know each other. We had done life, we'd gotten to know each other. We actually started really caring about like, oh, so what do you got going on and stuff. And so then to like walk with somebody and then to just see them go through a gut punch and then you receive the same gut punch, you were able to grieve in a specific way, because what you couldn't say is like, you guys just don't get it. And so you can't hide and say, I don't want to be vulnerable because these people won't understand. I go, they know exactly what's going on. And something about that, obviously never want to go back there, but something about that was the first spark of me. Is like, oh, Tyler, you need this. I was a pastor at that time too. So it was like, normally when you get in these Bible studies, like, Tyler, what do you think about Revelation 6? I'm like, remind me again. What? like I didn't have to be the spiritual guru. I got to be one of the guys. And so there was that. But the 2 highs for me was on the flip side. I don't know what year it was, but when the Powell's adoption finally went through the Grover. Do you remember? And I keep, because it was a ton of case rejections where it was like, they were like,
it was
hey,
like in the 80s. Like
it's insane. And so sitting with Brady in that too, and I know obviously the ladies were sitting with Laura, but it was just like, hey, we're excited. The house is ready. Everything's there. And it's like, oh, our name was thrown in. It's like, oh no, they went with somebody else. And that happening 80 times. And this is probably the first, and now it happens all the time for me, but this was the first time that like something, like we had a win. And for some reason I thought I was adopting a kid because it just felt like after you get rejected 80 times, and I wasn't rejected 80 times, it was the Powells, but it was like, they were our rejections. And so I'm like, I get the news. I show Nicole the phone. I'm just like pacing my house, like absolutely fired up. And I like text the guy. I was like, I'm going to Trader Joe's and I'm getting champagne bottles. We're going to NASCAR this thing. And so I remember buying like 6 bottles of cheap champagne. Yeah. And then we all met at like Thrasher Park, which is like a block away from the home that they were in at the time. And I just like texted her. I was like, you just got to come out to the front porch real quick, dude. And then we just just did the champion thing. And that was like the biggest, I was like, this is why we do what we do moment. And then the other one was celebrating Callie's 40th birthday on the same time that we're doing a Christmas dinner. And I think for us, we were like, oh, we've done Christmas dinners before. We'll go to the Murrays for drinks and desserts, and it'll be fun. And you guys like cleared out a floor. And I remember walking in. I'll never doubt you again, Callie. Never again. I don't know if it was your idea for the dance floor, if you surprised her with the dance floor.
Oh, no, definitely Callie's idea.
I was like, I looked at it. I was like, they cleared it. It's like, we have a dance floor. And then I look in the corner and we got DJ Tim. Shout out DJ Tim. I want coffee with you soon. And I'm like, we're all like 35, 40. Nobody's going to dance.
I got to stretch first.
And so I'm like, no, I'm just thinking, I'm like, we don't dance. This isn't prom. Like, it's going to happen. And then like, I was like 3 or 4 people.
A millennial playlist hits.
And then a millennial playlist. First of all, I was like, and then I look at my wife and she's like, are we dancing? It's like, we dance? And then, and we danced for like 4 hours. And I remember, so the dancing's fun. No, but what I remember about that, the reason it was special, the dancing was special. Nicole said it, and I felt like 3 or 4 other couples said it. They said like, if we would have known these people when we got married, this would have been our wedding party.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was like, these are like some of my best men. These would have been my groomsmen. Loved our wedding, loved the people that were in our wedding. But I was like, oh, these are the people that we want in our lives in that, because it was just, it was such a fun moment. So those were my highlights.
I'll also add too, we had our 4 oldest daughters join us for the party.
With a choreographed dance, by the way.
Yeah.
How long did that
Where
get
they learned
practiced?
that?
Yeah. David's like,
supposed to be on YouTube.
David's just like yelling at him in the mirror, make daddy proud. They're going to be here any minute.
Somebody said I don't know if someone took a picture of it, but my face while they were dancing. David does not look happy.
It was beautiful. Keep going. You're saying your girls.
But they just love our friends. And for them to just like they truly have their own friendships with our friends, which is the coolest thing. And so, I mean, like Angie, one of our newer kids, for her birthday, it's like we went to coffee with some of my friends that are her friends that, and that's just so special too.
I love that. So we'll get into some of the practical, like if someone's listening, hey, how do you start replicating this? But I think we do have to address everything from like vulnerability, transparency. When Callie opens up the discussion moment, she's like, guys, we're just going to talk about what's your biggest tension this year as a couple? What's the biggest fight that I don't know. She always has like a good, like, what are you guys fighting about the most right now? And we all have that moment where we're going like, I'm not sharing that. Like, or I look at Nicole and be like, what are you going to share? At some point, I think part of the reason why people hesitate is like, well, we're talking about, and this is just me thinking out loud. I feel like take any of our stories of your 40th birthday and it's a massive dance party or champagne bottles, or the highest height will only be matched by the depth of vulnerability that you're willing to have. So it's like, if you want to have just like a casual, like, David, we brought you a sheet cake from Publix, like, and that's like your high, I go, there's nothing wrong with that. But that's also because there's like a level of like shieldedness of like, nope, David, it's your birthday, so obviously we'll acknowledge that. I feel like the way that you get to these massive moments of celebration, and it feels like we adopted children, like the whole group, I feel like it requires of people massive levels of vulnerability. What's been the tension for you personally? I mean, I'll throw it to you guys and say that, like, what's like when the first time that you did it, or like what wrestles through your heart in that space?
It's Callie's. This is not biblical, but it's Callie's spiritual gift to be able to ask these questions.
To get away with it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, well, I will. I mean, we could, So there's leading with vulnerability, obviously. Like, I think if we share vulnerable stories, then that helps. But I think, community is a risk. Like, it is, like we said, like there's deep longing within all of us to be loved and accepted, to not be lonely. And so I think part of it is we walk into this with expectations, and I think expectations can be so damaging and hurtful. And so this is not my language. I heard it in some podcasts, but the difference in expectations versus agreements is helpful. And I think I think this season too with the adoption has like pushed us to like the depths of ourselves. And we've found that there's certain relationships that we walk into with expectations. And so that haven't been healthy, And so then we'll butt up against, like, if I would say, hey, Nicole, here's what I'm expecting of you in this moment, you might be able to say, like, I can't give you that. And does that make sense? Like, you might say, I'm not going to agree to that.
Yeah.
But we don't usually talk about, that gets weird. So I would say, big picture, community is a risk because we're dealing with people. And then vulnerability, obviously, is a big part of that. It's like, you want to be known. That's the whole thing. And so to be known, you have to share who you are. But in that vulnerability, understanding where do you have an expectation that maybe is unhealthy. So meaning like one person's not going to be your everything, or they might not know what to give you in that moment. Or so I think having some of that grace is helpful too.
I also think it might be helpful, Callie, to go back. Might have to think about this a little bit more if this is fully true. Like our story, though, I think that willingness to be vulnerable and knowing the need for it comes a lot from when we first got married, I joined the military, and this is a whole nother podcast on wounds of men, probably.
Coming up next week,
Yes.
everybody.
Yeah, right.
Tyler and David talk about his wounds.
But basically, I tried to go into Navy Special Operations and quit out of of my own weakness, quit out of that program with a bunch of other guys. And we all ended up together in California at a language school. And so in some ways, the vulnerability part was already taken care of. We all had just failed our biggest life dreams together. And so I feel like we got a head start. But even before that, there was like a group of girls who Callie got to know of. They were all married to guys who had already made it through this training. So like,
And they were officers, and we were not officers. Basically, they should not have been our friends, but they were so kind and invited us into community. So that season for us, the early military years, were like the finding community season, I think.
and I think it just shaped so much of how we didn't know it at the time of how we view community. One, we didn't have much time to build it because you're in the military and you're going to move every year or 2 years. So like, you don't have time to like wait to see. Like to like ease your way into it is like, we're going to be vulnerable on day one and talk about everything and just lay it all out there because by the time we get there, they're going to be moving. It's going to be too late. And I think some of that on the male side of it, of me and all these guys, it'd been taken care of. We're like, well, I know your biggest failure. You know mine. So let's just jump into it. It was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I do feel like, for me, vulnerability is not some virtue that you're born with, but like it's a muscle that you work.
Yeah.
And so I think if you're like worried about like the first time you share vulnerability being like really hard, I think you're gonna have all the thoughts of I'm come across too needy or I'm gonna be rejected. I go, you got to rip that Band-Aid off and do it. And you're probably, I think I always tell myself like, Tyler, the worst thing that can happen is that you get an F because of paralyzing fear that you didn't do something versus just accepting a B-. So like you said it in a way that probably wasn't helpful or maybe people didn't get it, but like at least you said it. And next time you can be vulnerable and you just keep practicing that muscle again and again. You get better at it. There's more, you understand more grace to it, how to receive it. I also think, Callie, back to what you were saying about the expectations and agreement is I think what can really help a community is that when Callie comes with a problem, it's not your responsibility to bring a solution. It's your responsibility to shoulder the problem with her.
Totally.
And so it's like if Callie goes, hey, Tyler, I need $1,000, no questions asked. I'm going to Lake City, whatever the reason is. It's going like, I don't have $1,000, but I go, instead of being like, hey, Callie, I can't give you that solution. That's fine because nobody can expect that. But what I can say is, okay, now Callie and I have to go find $1,000. Somehow, like, or whatever. And then it gives to this place of going to the group of going, hey guys, can you help us with this real quick? And I think then it lightens the load. And so I think just owning like hey, I can't fill everybody's cup. That's so true. But I think when you start taking responsibility with people and saying like, number one, I'm okay to share, hey, I'm in a need right now. And like, I just need to be able to express that need and know that like, hey, not one person in the group is going to be able to, sometimes it can happen. They'll be like, oh, I'm more than happy to take care of that. But to just recognize like that's what it is to bear each other's burdens is not I have to be the end because you're not God. You have limited resources. You too have to slumber, but you can go, you know what, that's become my problem now too. And so I'm going to help with that. So
I think when I think about vulnerability and for people that are desiring this type of community and this level of friendship with people, I do think seeing vulnerability as an offer and being able to accept that offer because nothing shuts it down faster than I'm vulnerable with you and you're withdrawn from me. And so I do think that there is this reciprocal requirement for a friendship to go deeper in that I put the offer on the table and someone else takes the baton and says, okay, this is safe. I can be vulnerable. And then if the group grows, everybody starts accepting that offer of vulnerability and that creates this safe environment. Because the minute that somebody walks in and is like, well, I don't want to talk about it. It's awkward now because everybody's like, that's not what this is.
What's what we're praying for you, Dave? I've got 3 unspokens. That's not biblical, by the way, guys. No more unspokens. Just be like, tell us what we can pray for you specifically.
And again, it's not to push people to share what they're not comfortable with.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's an invitation on the table for people to pick up or put down. Mm-hmm. And if everybody's willing to try, I think that the risk, like you said, it is a risk, but it pays off.
Yeah.
And I think in that vein, I would love to kind of just talk about if people are sitting there listening to this and saying, I want that so bad. I want this so bad. I want friends. I want real relationships. I want community. But I don't have it or I don't know where to get it. What would you say to them?
Step 1.
Yeah. It's funny. I've been keeping this like journal in a Google Doc about this whole adoption thing. And so much of it is about community and just the way people have shown up. And anyway, I met a girl at this conference thing, sent her the Google Doc, and her response was like, wow, I have a holy envy for your community. And
Is that biblical? Holy
holy
envy?
envy.
I think when you put holy in front of stuff, it like just this is a holy
Makes it spiritual
sandwich.
sounding.
Just checking.
But she like literally asked like, what do I do? How do I do it?
Mm.
And it's tough because Dave and I talked about it today. Like, I don't feel like there's this like 1, 2, 3 plan. It's also been this thing that's, I feel like, been in the works for so long. It involves other people. I think it's helpful to recognize, like, are you looking to build community or are you looking to find and plug into it? That might be different. Like when we moved to California, I feel like we were finding community. Like we plugged into something that was happening, which was great. And then that took, being real and vulnerable, asking people to let's go on walks, like getting to know people individually, all of that. But then, I think 10, 15 years ago, we realized we had all these friends, but there was no connection point. And it was actually before we joined Northlands. I remember thinking, if I died, who would plan my funeral? Where would it be? Like it was if we had something bad happen, who was going to
Callie, I've got this. It's going to be me and DJ Tim
Yeah.
on a waterfall. Just say, in the arms of an angel. It's like, don't worry.
We got you
keep
down.
going.
And now I have an answer.
Now you
Thank
have that. I just put it in the journal, please.
Great.
Just with the date. Go.
Yeah. But that's where I think it's like, I guess what I'm saying is there is a difference, I think, in having some friends and then having a tight-knit group of people, which you have some thoughts on that even of, we're not answering your to-do question yet. I'll get there in a minute.
Well, I think maybe if it helps clarify, I think what we see a lot on our end as pastors is we get a lot of people coming to us and saying, I'm not connected. I don't have a place. I don't know where I belong. I haven't found my people. We're leaving the church because we just couldn't get connected. And I would say 90% of the time, those are people that have not put in the effort to plug themselves in.
Yeah.
They have not joined a group, even though there's many groups available to join. They have not attended something regularly. They have not served on a Sunday. There's opportunities and there's processes that we've put in place to graft people into a church community. But by and large, the people that are really struggling in our
sometimes
experience,
it's mindset. Sometimes they actually do go to the group,
Yeah.
but I go, there's spiritual consumerism and there's spiritual contribution.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like when you walk into a group with it's totally fine to have holy envy. I don't know if it's biblical or not. I think it's totally fine to walk into a group and go, I need something. I'm looking for friends, right? But if you walk in with what can I get from these people? That's not the same as going, okay, if I'm going to grab it. Because I would say for me, building and finding, I would say is one of the same. For me is going, you guys built a community and then we grafted into this group. But then the building that the building that you have to do is you will have to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Which is hard work. You will have to. So it's like the finding is like, if somebody's like, if there's a pre-existing group that comes in, everybody's doing work. It's just the work that's going to have to do. It's like, oh, I've never been vulnerable before. It's like, well, I go, if you're going to get grafted in or you're going to get pushed out, because it's like, people can come into a group and then you're like, well, what happened to so-and-so? It's like, well, they didn't want to go on the Google email.
Yeah.
They didn't want to, they unsubscribed because too many, it's like they didn't want to be a part of the meal trains. They didn't want to. And so it's that kind of thing of like, that is work. It is
it's just a looking
mindset.
inward. Like,
Yeah.
nobody's ever invited me to dinner. Have you invited someone to dinner?
Totally.
Have you tried? Because I think, again, everybody deserves love and community, and we believe that the Lord has that for them. But there is a little bit of an independent,
It just takes two to make a thing go right.
I have
David, go.
a couple practical things I think that could be helpful. And again, I don't think it's like the whole solution. One is, I actually told our girls this recently. I can't remember what context I told them, but I think I was in like 10th grade, and the high school I went to, we didn't have a football team at that time. So anyways, everybody went to the basketball games. And after the basketball games, people would go to like Steak and Shake or to whatever. And like all the cool kids would go to these places. And I remember it just dawned on me one day that I was like, you want to go, just ask what everybody's doing. Like, you don't even have to invite yourself. Just be like, what are y'all doing after the game? And they'd be like, oh, we're going to Steak and Shake. You should come. And I was like, that's all it took?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't, nobody is thinking for you, or there's very few people in
Yeah.
this world who are going to think,
We gotta
let's
exclude him.
or even let's include.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
most people aren't
Yeah.
even thinking let's include. They're
Yeah.
just living their life.
They want a milkshake.
They'd be happy to have you there.
Yeah.
And so I think one practical thing is just to seek it out a little bit. Like, what else are y'all doing besides this small group that I'm in? You know what I mean? Or what are y'all doing this weekend? Or
Yeah.
like loose plans is like a super practical thing you can do.
Yeah.
Another just kind of thought I had was the more you can overlap your life, the better. Like it's really hard if you're familiar with Atlanta, I guess. Like if you work in Alpharetta, your kids are in school in Lilburn, your church is in Peachtree Corners, and you live in Duluth. It's like none of your life overlaps, which makes community almost impossible.
Yeah.
Because even if you get to know your neighbors, if your kids are not in school there and your church isn't there and your work isn't there, there's just very little overlapping. I think you need like 2 or 3 parts of your core part of your life to overlap for it to work really, really well.
Yeah.
Or it takes longer, but the more you have those, I think that's part of the reason it works so well in Norcross. It's like our marriage group requirements mostly are you either need to live right here and go to Northlands, or what are the other ones? It's
Well, we
like
kind of said, you like live in Norcross or you go to Northlands. Most of them are both, but they're
yeah,
the
it's
thought
okay if
is
you're
just
one of the
that
two.
Yeah.
But
you're overlapping.
Right.
But even
if you don't go to Northlands and
yeah.
you don't live in Norcross, like it's probably you're auditing.
Yeah.
And you need to go
you're
launch
on-
it.
We're
And
never gonna see
I'll
you.
share with guys too, like speaking on the whole proximity thing is I'll share with guys if they're in Alpharetta and they're in Northlands, I'm going, hey, let me help you build something in Alpharetta. But here's what we found is that so for me, what I found is that proximity is not actually necessarily the key. Consistency is.
Yeah.
And proximity makes consistency
Right.
very easily. So what was happening early on was especially when we have all these kids, it's like, hey, I'm in Alpharetta. The group's in Norcross. My kids are absolutely melting down. I can't just look my wife in the eye and be a good husband. Be like, all right, well, I've got group,
Yeah.
And so you just go, hey guys, I'm gonna have to miss tonight. Kids are just going through some stuff. I'll see you next time. Well, now you've missed an entire month because if you're only meeting the guys group once a month
Yeah.
and then the marriage group, versus you're a block away from the house that it's going to be in or a mile away from where it's at. And you go, hey guys, I'm going to be 10 minutes late because I need to sort something out. Now the guy still shows up. The couple still shows up. And that consistency leads to more. I think that faithfulness in the same direction comes up element. That's the big deal. So
Well, and I think we say this all the time, but I think that element of proximity in the spontaneous
Yes.
run-ins
Oh yeah.
in this
Unplanned.
stage of life with little kids.
Yeah.
I can't plan for 3 Thursdays from now.
Totally.
Like someone's going to have strep, like
Yes.
we can't to try to get double date on the calendar to hang out with that couple or meet. That's really, really hard in this stage of life, especially with younger kids. And so
we're constantly
we
going, hey, we're going to
rarely-
Zapatas if anyone wants to come.
yeah, we rarely plan in our community. I don't remember the last time I planned to meet other than marriage group, which is on my calendar. But the rest is like we're on a walk and we run into 3 of our friends and we chat. How's it going? How's that? Are you still looking at that house? How's work going? And we catch up and it's, oh, I connected with them. We had a moment. And so many times, pictures get, said like we were at the Mexican restaurant in our neighborhood and somebody was walking up and they just sat at our table for 30 minutes. And they ordered a bowl of chips and we chatted. People are like, oh, like I wish we could schedule that. And I'm like, we didn't schedule it. It
Yeah,
just
totally.
happened. And so as our week goes on, we feel so rich with connection and we've had all this social time, but none of it is planned. It's all spur of the moment because that's just the nature of our life right now. And I do think if we lived siloed, and we've seen people do that, they buy a house out, 30 minutes away because it's affordable and we get that. But it's like, that's going to be really hard to have the same momentum and depth of relationship because like you said, it just nothing overlaps. And then the only time you do get to see people is on that one Thursday a month and on a Sunday morning.
For me, when I'm like sitting, so because we've had other like guys group starts, we'll kind of meet together in that first year and just go, hey, you can do whatever you want, but here's some things that we've like learned along the way. I feel like a lot of the practical next steps is more about getting over misconceptions. So I see this a lot with churches as well. Like I love our journey groups. I think having reading a book together, doing a specific piece of content, but I would argue like we just did last year. Or reading the book, practicing the way, right? And that was like, but we didn't start off like, hey, every year we're reading a book together on top of these dinner. It was like, nope, we're just having dinner. We're gonna have some good conversations. And so the one thing is, don't overcomplicate this.
Yeah.
Is it's not. But people look, but it's like, but is it really like centered around Jesus and spiritual if you're not doing a Bible study or it's not? I go, They broke bread together in each other's homes. It's already spiritual. Praying together actually happens very naturally because you get into each other's life and go, hey, I'm going to be praying for that. And then you get into prayer chains and you're like, yep, we're going to keep praying about this. And so all the spiritual stuff will come out of it. But if you go, hey, I can't lead a group because I'm not a really good Bible teacher, or I don't really know what piece of content we would do. The other misconception is the size of the place that you're meeting in. I go, yeah, you obviously don't send out 50 invitations if you're a single guy in a one-bedroom apartment. But I go, you don't need 50 if you had honestly 3 to 4 guys. So it's like that, as well as you don't have to be the guru inviting people. And I think some people go like, I can't lead because I don't have enough in my life to share. I love how Stephen presented the guys group. And I think it was also how he started the marriage group, which is how it was just simply going, hey, Brittany and I were just talking and we wanted to take this year to do whatever we could to invest in our marriage. And we would like you to come into that. What I loved about that was like even unbelievers or people who are not really serving Jesus, like who doesn't want a good marriage? They did not say like, we have this great curriculum. They're just going like, hey, Brittany and I really want our marriage to be even better. We don't know what that means yet, but like, we'll start by like gathering. And if you too want to work on your marriage, so like figure out your format. If you're a single guy going, hey, I really want to like give myself to like creating a legacy for my life, or I really want to like hone in my craft, whatever it is. Like, so let's talk about what does it mean to like master the thing that you're called to do, or I really want to focus. Like, so this idea that you have to have this like 12-month curriculum to walk people through. So it's just breaking down, I think a lot of the barriers is the first step, because once you do that, now people go, okay, I'm going to have to open up my home. Step one. Yep. Totally. You'll have to, the gift of hospitality. Like it's those
Well,
things.
I think that's my simple answer that I didn't get around to is like, if you're looking for community, I would say start by asking someone to go on a walk or to come over for dinner or something. Like you don't have to go start a whole Google Suite situation. Like, and yeah, ask them just like, what's going on in your life? So how did y'all meet? Like, just start asking those questions. And then I would also say like, pray for people and follow up with them. Like one of the ways that I feel like I've felt so loved has been, like I think of Emily Harper as a great example here, who I don't know if Emily and I have ever hung out, just the two of us even, or
we're sorry.
I don't think we've, like it's not like we have this like long history together, but she just prays for us and she will just text me these prayers. And I just feel so connected to her because of that. So that doesn't require money. It doesn't require a ton of time, So I would say you start there.
Intentionality.
Intentionality.
Expressing it.
I think you brought up a good point too, that it can sound like, especially because you're so good at it, Callie, intentional questions I think can sound intimidating for lots of people. I actually think if you just can move beyond how was work today and how's weather to like whatever the next layer deeper than that is, you'll be doing better than most people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like when you run into somebody at the park or your neighbor, or like even just following up on something they told you last time is like exponentially more than what most people experience in their day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Usually it's like, it's cold again today. Yep. And then, all right, well, see you later. Like
I think it's part of the vulnerability thing in our culture in America is the first question people ask is, how's it going? And the person who's not fine, even though you just got fired from your job, number one. Yeah. Or when somebody says, oh, I'm doing all right. And then you just go, cool. And so the two things that happen is number one, if you're not okay or fine, don't let that be your answer, number one. And number two, when you can clearly see on somebody's face they're not doing okay, you just walked into it demands a second question. Okay, no, we got to talk. And I think I learned that from your dad, honestly.
Yeah.
Oh, probably, yeah.
Because Bill, Chief, he does not let oh, fine. And then like, oh, cool, see. He doesn't do that at all. Yeah. He goes, oh, I'm going to need you to tell me about that,
Okay, these are the chief dinners.
Uh-oh.
I told you about. So this is one of our like hacks, I guess. So yeah, David's dad, we called him Chief. The best question asker, and just so like, he just was such a good listener and loved getting to know people. And he had a ministry in his later years, and we donated a little bit of money every month to it. And so when he died a couple years ago, it was weird. We got this call saying like, hey, we're canceling your automatic withdrawal to the ministry. And it just felt like a sad, and then we have this little chunk of money and we said, let's do something every month to honor Chief with it. And so in our budget, there's a line item that says Chief dinner. And we've said, let's take somebody out to dinner on Chief, and ask them questions. And so we've used it mostly for people that are like, we don't know very well, and we're just getting to know them. And what's been great is it's been this monthly, it's like, who's our Chief dinner this month? And so it, it's just like a constant reminder.
It's also a weird trump card when people are like, no, like, I'll pay. And you're like, no,
Yeah.
my dad died. And so
It just shuts down the conversation. Nope, this is his. He's got
so
it.
you could just call it that. It
Yeah,
doesn't you like, feel like
I'll
the
just say that
awkwardness.
there.
You just made it awkward for another reason. That's fine.
Okay, so I've already decided here that this is only part one of community because we're coming back around to doing this when we have, essentially we have to have these conversations in between our kids being in school. So we're going to do a 3-hour Joe Rogan version of this.
Well, and there's the whole idea of stewarding community, which
Yes.
we didn't get to yet.
I'm happy
Is that part?
We're
I'll set you up for
We're
part
going to do
two.
part 2, and what we're going to do is we're going to talk about mushrooms, the pyramids, and stewarding. I want to be for 3.5 hours.
That's great.
No, any last thoughts? Do you want to hit stewarding and just to set up and tee up a conversation, or any part of that? I was going to say, like,
to
hey,
keep it
what's
short, I
one more
think
thing?
there's-
Like, what's the?
I remember actually talking to you in the Powell's backyard one day years ago, and I was like, man, if the only point is that we have great parties, like, I think we've missed it. But I felt like there was something coming, but we hadn't, I don't know, it didn't feel right to go like force something to happen, but I could feel it stirring. And I remember you were like, I have this idea about healthy homes. Anyway, what's been wild to see is like, I think the hard things we've all then walked through, but then like this adoption, or the Powells are now fostering, or Jennifer Stevens, our neighbor who's lost her husband, and just the ways I think, the community it got real,
Got real
or
real
even thinking of, I mean, I feel like there's like this like prayer movement now within the community. So I think there's this like, let's find friends so I'm not lonely. And then there's like, wow, now I'm not lonely. We're having a great time. But then there's this stewardship, open hands.
Which I think,
Your
just
last
to
thought, yeah.
close up, I think when you were saying, people say, I'm good, and you just walk away, I think something that I've seen in our community we've started to do now is we don't say, I'll be praying for you. It's like, can I pray for you right now?
Yeah.
Like, let's take this moment. It doesn't have to be long, or on a text, like send a voice note, send a text, a prayer written out. Like that doesn't cost you anything really. But the impact is huge, and it's personal, and it's intimate, and it's real, and it's not brushing off something, because so many times as believers, I think we say that, I'll be praying for you. And do we really? Maybe we do, but do they know,
Yeah.
And so I think that just taking it that extra step of, I think it's that third layer, just not letting it stay at this surface level.
Yep. Any last thoughts on you, and I'll wrap us up.
I think maybe episode 3
Let's go, dude.
could be. Maybe this goes into the stewarding thing.
There's the
I
prequels.
think Steven actually sent me yesterday like a little Matt Chandler like snippet. I think from them doing this basically is he and his wife have a podcast.
Come on.
And his point was lots of people don't have anybody who would like come help them move a mattress. There's lots of people who would have somebody who you're like, hey, can you come over this afternoon whenever you get off work, help me move something? Very few people have someone who would come over like 3 a.m. So I think there's also an element to like, yes, there's like this broad community that you need to steward, but you also need like a core group of people who like, especially when it comes to the vulnerability piece, like there's another layer there of people who are like, I've seen you over the long period of time. Like I could just walk in a room and know something's off with you, and I can probe you. Like you may not want to say it,
Yeah.
but I'm going to keep pushing it.
I'm not here moving a couch at 3 a.m. without being
Yeah.
getting their
I know
voice.
something's going on.
Why am I moving a couch here at 3 a.m.?
What's your deepest tension
So
right now?
anyways, I think that's something just to keep in mind too, that it doesn't stop with like the broader community. And also I just think maybe a good way for me to end my thoughts on today is just like, I'm so grateful for our community.
very grateful,
Thankful for y'all, thankful for the people who have just loved us so well. Like God designed us to be in community. It's not like a crutch or a, just something like you could put it in the category of just things you want. Like, wouldn't it be cool to live in that neighborhood, or wouldn't it be cool to have this as a job? It's not that category.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
we are meant to be in it.
Yeah. And it's like we spend these years building this community, and then we had older kids, like we kind of felt like the grandparents. And then all of a sudden I have a 3-year-old now through this adoption. And all of a sudden, like,
Welcome back.
exactly. And I feel like this community has just like carried us through it. And so, different seasons.
I think kind of pinging off of this and with what Callie said on the stewardship side is like my case for somebody listening would be to not worry so much about how it starts in the expression, but just make it really clear to center it on a singular value. So I would say the one common thread is that while it looks different every year, our value really is centered around Jesus.
Mhm.
And so if you do that, this is what we found is that the first 2 years was just doing life together, and it was the parties. We're like, we're just so grateful meeting together. It was the early church. Like, this thing's just growing and there's no persecution. Everything's wonderful. Nobody said, now it's time for you guys to be on mission. But because the value is around Jesus and not like a soccer club that will eventually go away or like college dorms that we're eventually going to move out of, but because it's centered around like we're coming around trying to be the best husbands and wives and, fathers, mothers, but it's centered around Jesus is telling us how to do that. And so then it led to mission, which then led to a practicing the way of, okay, so what does it look like for us to like live out our lives with vulnerability and the gospel? So it was like, nobody said, oh, we should really like be praying for Jen Stevens right now, or let's take their boys out, or let's help them with something specific. It was just going, that's just the natural, of course we would do that because that's who we've decided to be. So if you bring people together, I think some people think like, oh, groups that are homogenous, we're all in our 40s. I go, true, it's easier, but it's not the sameness. It's being unified around a core value. So my case would be to center around Jesus, and you'll be amazed at how it just naturally unfolds into something that feels transformative and not just like a niche club kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that.
We have to have more conversations about this, and I promise you we will. Let me pray for everybody real quick, for people who are longing for community. I want to pray for people to find that community this year. Lord, thank you so much for the Murrays, for Callie and David. Thank you for Nicole. And Lord, thank you for the community that you've built into our lives. Now, Lord, I ask, Holy Spirit, would you start drawing hearts together of people in their neighborhoods? Lord, I pray for churches even to form up, missional communities to form up, but for people to find relationship and companionship. You're the one who made us, and you said it's not good for us to be alone. And so, Lord, would you bring the lonely into family as you've always done this year? Would you help orphans find home? Would you help people who need shoulder-to-shoulder allies and relationships? Would you help that? And Lord, we thank you for what you are doing and what you promise to continue to do in our lives. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thanks so much for listening.